All right, good afternoon. I'll call the Board of Water Wastewater Commissioners meeting, the conference room in the Harwich Water Department at 196 Chatham Road, Harwich, Mass. For Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 at 1:05 to order. First of all, I want to say hello to everyone. It's good to see everyone back in live person again with our two new board members, John and Noreen. And it's good to be back, and I look forward to serving with you all for next year. We need a motion for the consent agenda for the minutes for April 28th, 2021, May 6th, 2021, and May 26th, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the minutes of March 4th, March 19th, and April 8th, 2021.
I have April 28th, May 6th, and May 26th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
April 28th.
May 6th, May 26th.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
What's on the agenda?
It's right here.
I think those are the minutes.
No, I'm okay.
You got a lot of agendas there.
Yeah, it's the 28th
All right.
of April. Yeah, all right. Mr. Chairman, let me correct myself. I move that we adopt the minutes of April 28th, May 6th, and May 26th of 2021 as presented.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second,
All right, any further discussion?
yes. I didn't see the May 6th. Maybe they were in one of the emails, but I didn't open them all.
Okay, there were two emails that were sent. The first one didn't have them,
Okay.
and then the next morning, I think it was 10:55. The May 6th was
Yeah,
sent.
I thought it was like the day, the day before one's
May
okay.
26th, yeah. I have all three here. They're in the paper packet
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
All right.
That's fine. And a lot of times I would abstain on meetings that I wasn't at, but I watched those on TV, so I'm fine.
So we have a motion to approve. We have a second. I'll take a vote to approve. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. We have no abatements, no old unfinished business. We have new business. Proposed water rate increase, review for legal, ad, and public hearing. So I asked Dan to put this up so you both can see the process that we went through as to how we came up with the new rates for fiscal year 22. And just so you can see how we came about it, have any questions or any thoughts on it, at least you see the process that we went through and how we came to our decision.
So if I can, I guess, lead off with some background. So one of the difficult things that we, have to overcome when we're determining what rates are going to be is the seasonality. We can pump upwards of 100 million gallons more than we will in a wet year versus a dry year. So one of the bases for generating rates, the board is elected to base rates on a more conservative or a wet year, right? So when we're building our rates, we're assuming that we're going to have a wet year, meaning we're going to pump less. So that's a big component. Another component with respect to the rates is that the Water Commission, now Water Wastewater Commission, elected to generate a surplus revenue in the amount of 10%. So we're operating or structuring rates for a budgeted surplus to fund our future capital improvements. So as we get into the tables within that PowerPoint there, I just want to touch on really all the details in here because there's a lot of information on these tables. And Mike, we have these up on the screen as well. So the real telling one is this graph on the bottom left. So we have in the blue line our revenue goal. So that is our anticipated budget plus the 10% budgeted surplus. And then the lower green line here is what our projected revenues will be. The bars within the graph are our operating expenses, our debt services, and then as well as any new debt that we'll be taking on. So an easy way to look at these for comparison's sake is if we see our green projected revenue line start to dip into those bars, that's reflecting a deficit in our revenue versus operating expenses. So this first table here is a reflection of our static water rates if we did nothing. So you can see, looking, and these graphs and tables all correlate to the data up at the top of the screen here. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see this. So we have our total revenue, which is our rate revenue and non-rate revenue, in the uppermost green column here. Our revenue goal is strictly our revenue plus our 10%. And then down in this next column, or set of rows here, we have our net revenue, or what our retained earnings, expenses, and contributions. And you can see when we start to get into these orange and red columns here is where we start to run a deficit. Now, the retained earnings and expenses and balances are reflective of the capital plan that the board adopted a couple years ago. We went out 10 years, so this reflects all of the capital improvement projects that are within that plan. So we did about, I think, over 10 iterations of different possible rate structures, ranging from just increases to the base rate, various tier increases. We explored some not touching tier 1, but evaluating impacts of raising rates on tiers 2, 3, and 4. There was a lot of information that we went through with Ty and Bond as to our rate structure. And, one of our variable tiers is tier 4. There's a lot of uncertainty with that. Again, with that 100 million gallons that we could be pumping or not pumping, depending on the year, that tier 4 revenue accounts for about 50% of the annual revenue for the year. So it's a big, or the summer months rather, it's a big component of our revenue. So in this slide, I do only have the 5 that we kind of boiled down to that would reflect a rate structure that could support the operating budget and the capital plan. So
In the packet, though, we do have all 11
on that comparison
and
sheet,
scenarios. We do, yeah.
So let me jump out here. So I think you've probably all looked through these, but just for the recording and for people who may follow along after the fact, the 5 scenarios that were still being considered or reflecting that they will support the operating budget is alternative A, which is an $8 base rate increase and a 2.5% annual increase on all tiers. Alternative G was a $10 base rate increase and 5% increase on the tiers for FY22 and FY23. Alternative H, $10 base rate and a 3% increase on all tiers from FY22, 23, and 24. Alternative J was a $10 base rate increase, 5% increase on tiers 2 and 3, and a 4% increase on tier 4, and that was for FY22 and 23. And then there was alternative K, which had an $8 base rate increase and 3% annual increase on all tiers. And that alternative K was a 3% continual increase, so it wasn't just for 1 or 2 years like the other ones. So to just jump into what those all look like. And again, we can go through each chart, or we can kind of go to the summary ones. I don't know how much you guys have had a chance to look, or I can stop if you have questions right now on any of the table information.
Why don't we just go through the 5 that we have, and at least they can see the graph and see what each alternative, how far out will go, and how it affects the budget.
And again, so when we're looking at this bar graph on the left, I did skip over a couple things. So this tan band that's kind of at the bottom half is our retained earnings goal. So, as Ty and Bond alluded during our rate studies, we want to maintain a balance of at least $1 million in that retained earnings account. So what you see here is the bar, the band of yellow, and then that actual line within that is our retained earnings projection. So that's what we anticipate to be in those accounts those outgoing years. So you can see for alternative A, we're maintaining our retained earnings balance all the way out, and we start to drop down at FY27. And you can see also that we're meeting our revenue goals from FY22 out to FY25. We start to dip out in FY26. For the next one, alternative G, reflects a $10 base rate increase and 5% for all tiers. So you see in this chart, we are maintaining our retained earnings balance throughout the entire projection, as well as slightly exceeding our revenue goal for FY22, 23, and 24. And then we're dropping back in to sync with it in FY25. This is the one. This one actually had an incorrect line in the packet. I corrected today. So you can see in this one we have revenues meeting or exceeding our revenue goal, again out through FY25, and again also retaining an adequate enterprise fund balance throughout the duration. The next one here. Alternative J. Again, a similar, and we see this in the summary page at the end. These 5 rate structures were really the 5 that hit the mark for these FY22 through FY25 marks. So really any one of these would be sufficient to float the boat, if you will. Alternative J does reflect us dropping below our minimum retained earnings balance in FY27 and dropping below our revenue goal in FY25. And then we have alternative K. And you can see this with the 3% year over year increases. We're able to really match our revenue goal all the way out through FY28, as well as maintain a stronger retained earnings balance. So to go from there and look into what are the impacts on the everyday user. So one of the things that we evaluated as part of this process is the affordability factor, right? We have a population of, senior, fixed income, some low income residents in Harwich that, we don't want to negatively impact or make water something that they can't afford. So the EPA's definition or stated view on potable water is that it is affordable if it costs less than 2.5% of a small community's median household income. Now, to take that a step further, you can also evaluate it against the lowest quintile income of the community. So in Harwich, our median household income is about $75,000, and the lowest quintile income is just under $30,000. So when we're comparing affordability, looking at it not only at the median household income, but also comparing it against the lower income population, you can see in this slide here, these are our annual cost of water as a percentage of our median household income and the lowest quintile income. So for the median household income, we're reflecting a cost of water at 0.3 to 0.37% between our existing rates and the highest proposed rate. And then for the annual cost as it pertains to the lowest quintile income, we are ranging between 0.77 and 0.93%. So by the EPA's definition of affordability of water, all the proposed rate structures are well below that threshold. And then when we look at what is our typical bill for water consumption. Now, the typical bill reflects your average water user, someone who is not irrigating their lawn, the typical user. As you can imagine with the tiered rate structure, if you start to blow 40, 50, 60,000 gallons of water onto the lawn, you hit those upper tiers, it's going to be a different ballgame. But for the affordability component, what we're trying to look at is what's affordable to the general user, not someone who's voluntarily wasting water, if you will. So you can see that our existing rate structure for an average water user reflects a typical bill of around $57. The range of bills with the proposed rate structures would change that from $56.94 to a range of $68.13 to a high of $69.98. So on the average bill, we're talking, $10 to $15 increase, which over the course of a year can be $40, $50. So taking it a step further and looking at what are the annual costs, what is the annual increase that this rate will impact upon residents. So again, using that average water consumer under our existing rate structure, the total cost of water from FY20 to FY28 would be approximately $2,050. And that is a sum of all those years combined. And the annual cost for the proposed rate structures only reflects about a $288 to $341 increase over that same 9-year period. So, it really is incremental for the normal, regular user. I think that covers the slides that were in the presentation. And just to recap, I guess, back to the August meetings that the Water Commission had. They had a consensus on alternative G, which is a $10 increase to the base rate per quarter and a 5% increase on tiers, all the tiers for FY22 and FY23. Now, just so that everyone is aware, as far as the rate setting and structure process, moving on this year for July 1 will still require another rate hearing next year to enact the second 5% increase. So there is room to pivot, halfway through. If we do have a dry year, we do pump a lot, we're expecting a high retained earnings contribution. That's something that could be potentially postponed at that point. So we're not making a 2-year commitment, really. It's ultimately really just for this year.
Dan, can you put that slide up of the proposed rate increase, just so we can see the graph again?
For this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we envisioning for the next 2 years of where our budget will go. I think it's easier to look at a graph.
Yeah. One other component too that we had an internal discussion last couple of weeks about different rates and fees. Maybe not for the July 1, but one thing that we intended on bringing back to the board. Hopefully, we're going to end up doing another rate hearing, next year for the second increase, that we could also consider evaluating the other fees that the department has. There are a number of fees that, other communities have that we simply don't. For example, a subdivision development fee. So when someone comes in and installs a 8-10 inch water main and is going to build 100 properties, that does put an additional stress on the water system. We have to make more water available to more customers, and right now the tapping fees are menial. For example, in the town of Pembroke, where I live, if you wanted to cut in a water main, the developer would be putting $30,000 towards the cost of developing that water system in the subdevelopment. And those funds could be used and earmarked for capacity development, new source development that will ultimately be needed down the road to maintain water, availability for these new customers. There's also a number of fees that we have in here that are structured based off of hourly rates, that haven't been evaluated in some time. So what we wanted to do was also go back and reevaluate our billing rate ultimately that we bill out, because it hasn't been adjusted in a number of years, to make sure that we're actually recovering cost of those services we provide. One other component that I would ask the board to consider at this juncture for the rate hearing in July would be the possibility of abandoning the meter replacement discount program. So a lot of times what happens is, say you have a new meter at your property. You have 5/8 by 3/4 meter at Gary's property. We're going to pick on Gary. And you want to install a 10-zone irrigation system that you don't have enough water with your 5/8 meter to supply that. If you wanted to, oh, that's frozen damage. Sandy, am I speaking out of time, or is this, yeah,
That's the upgrade.
the upgrade fee?
This, what we'd like to remove both, actually.
Yeah,
The
the damage fee. So if your meter, let's rewind a little. So put your meter in 5 years ago, it froze, it was damaged, broken, or otherwise. Historically, the department has depreciated meters. Now, if you break your meter, we're giving you a discount for the replacement,
And that includes a frozen meter, because we're responsible for that.
which I don't feel is very appropriate. There's also, a long-standing policy of discounting if someone's upgrading the meter, right? So that instance I was just referring to with an irrigation system, if you now needed a 2-inch meter and you're in a new meter, we're giving you a credit on the new meter, but it was a voluntary increase on the property owner to upsize the meter. Depreciating it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially because we can't reuse that meter. We're not going to install the used meter we take out in a different location. So
Yeah, that used meter is done.
yeah, so that would be one thing, I guess, aside from this, and not really tied so much to revenue and enterprise fund, but just more of as a policy that we're discounting meters that, really, I don't believe should be discounted.
All right. Let's just focus on the tiers, because I'm getting confused. So let's just focus on this right now.
Yeah.
But what you're saying makes sense, and I don't know why we're discounting meters if people are voluntarily upgrading their meters.
Is that a squeaky wheel got the grease at one point in time?
Yeah. So
You're
let's
talking
yeah.
about the number of years in service?
Yeah.
It's discounted by that?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
But let's hang on to that thought. But just to go back to the rate for alternative G, this is what the 3 board members voted on, and we were proposing for July. I don't want to put you guys on the spot for voting on something, but I just feel as though you should have the opportunity to vote on it, seeing that you are now elected board members, and at least see how we came up with it, why we came up with it, and why we haven't increased rates in the 6 years I've been here, so it's been a substantial time. And so seeing what we have and what we've discussed so far, are there any questions as to what we've seen so far?
It was a confusing day or two going through all this, no question,
Yeah.
but I don't object to voting because you guys really did all the legwork, I mean, I'll admit I didn't look at the scenarios that you guys had already, excluded, so I focused on the 5 alternatives. And I mean, other than, hitting a typo that Dan corrected for me, it felt plain to me. It wasn't easy, but it felt plain. I did have 2 issues, and maybe it's because like you guys are so close to the water bills that you're like the forest and the trees, and for me it's just all a brand new slate. And one thing I kept stumbling on, and it sounds so silly, but for the entire first day, I thought the base rate you were proposing was going from 140 to 150. You know, I think we should use the word quarterly more often. And I know you folks assume it, you know, because you know what an average water bill is.
Right.
You know, I don't think a lot of the public even knows, you know, really what their water bill is, or, you know, it comes around the same time as real estate. Oh yeah, it goes in 3 weeks later. And, you know I had some friends who were very confused, you know, a couple I referred to you, you know, even from the quarterly to the, from the semi-annual to the quarterly switch, and I'll tell you, the time bond discussion of that I found much more confusing than the rate tiers, to tell you the truth. But so I, you know, as you know, an outsider coming in, I would just say if we can, personally, and maybe I'm the oddball, but if we can use the word quarterly more often, you know, because I think people, and on the same vein, Dan, when you just said, for instance, the annual cost of water was X, and using as a scenario, scenario G, you know, you said, okay, so it's going up 2,050 to 2,388, you know, in 9 years with that scenario. But it's only going up that small amount if we don't raise the rates after 23. So if we can remind people of that, you know, because you say that's based on scenario G, but nobody else in the world is going to know what scenario G is, you know. So, you know, when we're discussing it, you know, if we were to say, oh, it's only going up $300 over 9 years, some people are going to remember that. And then if we have to go up again in 25 or 26, somebody's going to say, hey, I have it on tape. You know, you said back then that we were only going up. So I guess I'm just going to be your reminder for like people reading the stuff for the first time.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point.
So on that point, I guess maybe it's appropriate to skin this back so that it's only reflecting, you know, the years that we're talking about. And
I mean, either way, you know, no matter what you say or do, some people are going to misunderstand it.
Right.
You know, so you know, I would just say the obvious ones.
Yeah, because really right now this G is for 22 and 23.
Right.
And if we vote to continue it along, that's what you're going to see out to 28.
Right.
But it's on a year-to-year vote.
Yeah. Not
But you're right about the
issues, though.
quarterly, because I'm looking at it now too. It says $10 base, but it doesn't say quarterly.
Yeah.
I thought it was going up
Yeah.
to 150.
Yeah,
I
you're
really
right.
did.
Yep. That's a good point too. See, fresh eyes. That's what we need.
Fresh eyes. So that's, other than that, I thank you folks for doing all the really hard work.
All right. Anything else?
I was thinking that alternative K would be better and take it out to fiscal year 28. You know, we've had 5 years go by, we've had no rate increases, and this antique shop isn't going to get any better. So we have a lot of things on the plate, a lot of major projects coming up, and I think that we have to think more in the basis of there's no grants out there, there's no free money, so everything we do, we either pay for or we borrow and pay interest. So I think it should go out, you know, something of that nature.
So just to clarify too, this is alternative K with a
Yep.
$8 base
Base rate.
quarterly increase and a 3% increase on all tiers.
To fiscal year 28.
All right, but even saying that, they still have to get voted every year.
Right.
Going out.
Or you can reaffirm the vote.
Right. So Dan, can you show? So where? Oh, it's right there. Okay.
One question.
Norrie?
Just would it stop at 28? That's just the diagram. It seems to
At
me.
this point in the fiscal year 28, you'll have to take a look,
Right.
a renewed look. Somehow the years just kind of slip by for
Yeah.
you know? And there's always something else that comes up that deters you from taking a look at the cash flow, you know?
I mean, we have a 30-year capital plan on the books,
Right.
and right now we were doing 7.
Yeah.
but we pushed it out to 10.
And that price difference between K and G, even on the quarterly, is that gonna add up to anything on a
So,
yearly basis that would help with the aging infrastructure in any significant way? Or is it,
having the
Having this-
annual increase,
yeah, if we went with G
So if we go with
versus
G,
A,
fiscal
versus
year
K.
28, they'd be paying 69.19.
Got them,
And then
okay.
K would be 69.98. Not a lot of money. But it gives you, unless you guys wanna just do 2 years and then take another look at it, then stick with G.
into scenario K is a softer start, you know, whereas G, you know, the existing bill now would be in FY 22 is 56.94. Scenario G would bump up to 68.03, and scenario K with the 3% would only go up to 65.
And in that interim period till we get to 28, are we gonna be taking in any significant revenue? I mean,
Yeah,
if you put it
and-
on a scale of, is it better to go to town meeting if we have some serious, is it gonna help to fund anything significantly, or is it just a small buffer? I'm just not a math person.
The 3%,
Yeah,
I mean, this will certainly support better. I mean, K has the best in terms of retained earnings balance, you know, sustaining that retained earnings balance.
okay.
And the more funding we have available in retained earnings, the less we have to borrow, you know, the more capital we can support without taking on debt. So,
Had we agreed on K before, was that?
Right now,
was it
we've voted on G,
G?
right?
Yeah.
And then, Noreen,
No, I would just add to what Judith said, and, you know, if, you know, people are always upset about fees, but, you know, if you say, well, it's a 2-year increase, and then we'll look at it again, and, you know, then 2 years from now, if it stays the same, you know, and you say that, you know, I just don't think humans will remember that in this day and age, because something's always going up, you know, I mean, nobody's gonna remember that it only went
It's
up
not
30
going
cents.
down.
Yeah, I know, yeah, you know, so, I mean, that's a good point.
I mean, we can always put it on the agenda for a refresher vote, whatever, but I mean, the demand for capital funding in this department is gonna be unbelievable, and there's more years to buy, you know. You know, you think about that, well, a good example is the Route 28 water main.
Yeah.
We're just doing a piece of it. We need to do the whole thing, you know, from Dennis to Chatham. The whole thing. I mean, we got asbestos pipe in the ground on 28. We got all kinds of old cast iron, been in it since the 30s. You know, it's kind of coming on you. You just can't turn a blind eye anymore to the infrastructure. You need to deal with it. We have tank issues, you know, we're dealing with them, we're doing what we can. But, you know, you guys are gonna be around a lot longer than I am, I'm sure.
well,
So I'm just making
I
a
said
point
right
to you,
I didn't mean it like
you
that.
know, for a lot of years,
Right.
we haven't done anything.
Yeah, well, what's with that, huh?
Well, my thought on it too is, with the G and the K, is to budget so we can afford the projects that we have, and not to have a big surplus in cash. You know what I mean? I mean, if we can budget, you know, with $1 million that they say to have in that, and raise rates to where we can afford our projects instead of accruing all this extra cash. I don't want to say extra cash, but I mean,
You're not gonna accrue it because you got projects on the
oh
books.
wait, that's what we're budgeting for though, too, at the same time. That's why, you know, that's just my feeling on it. So
yeah, we don't want to front load
right,
too, you know,
Yeah.
it's a balance because
right.
if,
I don't want to be showing
We
$2
don't wanna
million
raise-
in revenue in the line item. I mean, that's not fair to the customers either.
right,
Yeah, I mean, but you need a fair amount of cash to take on the project.
Right.
You're not gonna go build a tank with this money.
But there are grants out there that we're working on that, the government's giving grants to do, like the Lothrop,
Right.
Lothrop roads. I mean, there is money available if you can find it and
Right.
get your hands on it.
And that too, as an example, that grant, that project, isn't even on our 10-year capital plan.
Right.
It's, there's enough things out there that just,
Right.
you put them all in there, it'll look like a CVS receipt. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was comfortable with alternative G. It puts it out for 2 years. We can reevaluate, and I mean, we have the right to, we look at rates again, which we will be. I mean, rates aren't going down, unfortunately. But if we can maintain rates, be affordable going forward, I mean, I think that's the right thing to do. So that's why I was comfortable with G. So what's the board's pleasure? Do we want to stay with G, or do we want to go to look at K? So is there a motion let's take another vote on what we had, and I'm going to make a motion to stay with alternative G.
Just quick question for clarification. So with K, we don't review it after 2 years? This is
Well, we have to
We
do
have to review
have
it
to
every
review
year.
it.
every year.
every
Every
year.
Yeah,
But-
we can't do what we've done.
Okay. So either way, we're gonna be.
Yeah, we have
Every
to
year,
have
gonna
every
be-
you have to take a vote every year. But this is at least showing the public, like, what the funding would be and where we'll be over the course of the next couple of years.
And the dashes are unknown, or the dashes are the most recent charge? Continuation of the most recent charge.
Which,
Like
what are
in
you
G, it's
Annual cost of water, is that what you're on? Typical billing.
typical billing,
so the change in typical bill, the dashes are reflecting, so
so it's.
for
one-
example, scenario A or K, we were just looking at. Scenario K is a 3% increase each year. So you're going to see a slight increase in your change in your typical bill. Whereas scenario G, we were only proposing increase in FY22 and FY23. So the change in typical bill, there wouldn't be any further change out beyond FY23. That makes sense.
But we still have to vote every year.
Yes.
So,
Because we have to have a hearing. We have to have a
So
hearing
the public
when the
hearing
rates are
is
increased.
so just for clarification. So scenario K, this is what we estimate it's going to be going forward, the 0.70, 0.72, 0.74, 0.76, 0.79, what we guesstimate,
that
even though
is-
we have to vote every year?
Yes, that
That's
0.68,
3%.
0.7 reflects a 3% increase
Each year.
over each year. So that's how much your bill's
But
gonna
it's
go
not
up.
fixed because we have to vote every year.
Right. So this is really laying out our intent, right? I mean,
okay.
we have a big
That's-
backlog.
If we vote on it over the next 5 years, that's what it will be. If we stay with scenario K for the next 5 years, that's what the bottom line is going to be. Even though
Why
we
are
have,
we voting then? I mean, why are we voting every year if that's what it's gonna be?
that just gives the public, so if the board decides to stay with scenario K, this is what your bill will be in 4 years.
It's guaranteed?
Well, not
That's what, that's where I'm.
No, meaning,
I'm
so
like,
we have to, by
well,
law,
what happens if we have to replace something big unexpectedly? Does that affect this?
yeah.
Or
I
does
mean,
that affect town meeting? A different bucket?
Well, it goes to town meeting. Yeah.
Right, no, but I mean,
yeah, it's all
we can do is
connected.
do it.
depending
are we
on-
keeping this way and then asking for separate funds? This is just what's confusing me on the
Yeah,
dash
so
dash dash versus
If you look at it,
if we have to vote every year.
these tables are related, right? So this $8.66 is the difference between the 65.60 and the 56.94, right?
Yeah.
And then the 68 cents is the difference between here and here and here, going this way, reflected just the money that we say something happens, catastrophic failure, depending on the cost of what that is, it may or may not impact rates, right? If a tank falls down or hurricane knocks out both tanks and we're on the hook for $10 million worth of work, we're going to have to raise, we're going to have to go back to the table. If it was, a tree fell and hit a pump station and it was a couple $100,000 worth of work, that could be paid for out of retained earnings, and, you know, would have to just evaluate what the impact of that would be on this graph here, where we fall within that band. So if there was a $300,000, you know, incident, and that resulted in this line dipping down below here, the board may want to consider, you know, changing the rate to reflect the need to bring that back into that retained earnings band.
Okay, ask one more question. So Alan, so you're looking at this more as a perception.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
obviously
can't
practical.
foresee what problems we're gonna have.
Right.
All I know is we're gonna have problems.
And
Just
then
try to
if
get
we
a
make this
page back.
gradual, people will have a easier
That's what my
appetite to
attempt
be.
is to.
That makes
yeah,
sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
not to eat the turkey all at the same time.
Okay.
A little each year.
Okay,
I,
that makes sense.
and, you know, here we've gone 5 years, we shouldn't have done that. We should have done something. And shame on me, I'm sitting here, you know, and, I mean, all these things keep changing, the prices go up, and, I mean, it's scary out there, you know. Somehow they go up and they don't go down, you know.
And K works operations wise if everything stays.
Yeah, I mean, we
If
can-
there's no.
All five
of
all
these
five
All
of these tiers
five,
will.
that's right.
will be
Okay.
sufficient. It's really, you know,
Yeah, how do
how
you
you want
approach
to
it?
get there, yeah.
I mean.
Thank you, sorry.
Well,
No need to be sorry.
It's like,
No.
I kind of remember this
It's
from.
good.
But,
Yeah.
you know, we have a way, a human way about, you know,
Yes.
sometimes you don't get around to that item.
Right,
Yeah, but at least we got something there. But,
Noreen?
so now,
Noreen?
So, you know, I don't know what the procedures are. I assume utility rates get listed with the DPU or DTE or whatever they're calling themselves nowadays, no?
We publish advertisement in newspaper, publish the rates. We advertise 2 weeks in Chronicle Times, and then hold a public hearing here, and that's
And that's it? Nothing goes into town? It doesn't need to? Boston? No?
No.
So whether we were to vote K or another one that looks close to that, we're not really publishing our intention. Are we?
No.
Is it published as next year?
yeah. So the
Okay.
rate, the advertisement for our rate hearing will include the new rates for FY22. That's all we're voting
I
on.
see. Okay.
So, you know, this is, you know,
Right.
good to project out, know what path we're on, but yeah,
So
it's
this is
just that
really,
one.
really just a statement of the board's outlook.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to turn in anything to the state. I gotta read that chapter.
Yeah, well, electric utility, right?
Yeah.
that's old days.
How do we fare with the other towns?
So other towns, like Orleans, for example, they have a base rate, I believe it's in the $80 range, $80 or $90 range. So one of the things that this board discussed, and we've discussed with, was it Abrams that, a long time ago? Who was the guy that did Orleans? Wasn't it Abrams Group?
Pioneer Consulting.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
one
wasn't
of the
this-
things that they were looking at and why their base rate is so high is because when we keep our revenue generated from our tiered structure, there's a fair amount of uncertainty. That 100 million gallons, a wet year versus dry year. If you can shift the expense from the tiered structure to the base rate, you have a much more consistent, regular revenue, you know, throughout the years. The issue with that is the little old lady who, you know, pays $35 base rate and uses 1,000 gallons of water is now going to pay $100 a quarter instead of, you know, the $40 that she would have been on the hook for. So you lose a little of that, you know,
Right.
ability to cater to the lower income demographic
Absolutely, yeah.
when you
Okay.
go that route. Chatham does it a lot differently than us. with both water and sewer. They have a winter and a summer rate. So winter and a summer base rate, winter and summer tiered structure. I don't know how they got there, or why they do it that way, but that's how they do it. Trying to recall where we were when we did side by side, and as just a point, I don't like comparing our rates sometimes to the other communities, because our rates are reflective of our, proactive, work on our
Right.
water system,
Infrastructure.
right? And, someone who doesn't raise rates, might be a neighbor, and we may look at their super cheap rates, but not know that they're grossly neglecting it. Not that that's the case in Brewster or Denver, but
We do have the best water in the state. They keep winning the award.
All right, so Noreen,
One more, sorry.
that's fine.
So I was surprised to read how much of the revenue actually comes from the base rate, not knowing, I would have assumed it came more from the actual usage of water. So knowing that, and knowing that we're considering, well, some are considering one at 3% rather than the 5%, why wouldn't we consider having K but with a $10 base rate? What's the purpose of going down to $2 to $8?
we were at K
Uh-huh.
in the alphabet. No, we were really at this point when
Yep.
so when Ty and Vaughn left us, ultimately with this
I see.
workbook that we have,
Right.
we had the do nothing scenario, which is all the way at the top, and I think we had maybe an A or a B, and recognizing that we needed to explore more options, the board and staff said, well, okay, let's look at an $8 base rate and 3%. Let's look at a
Right.
$10 and
Right.
those were just the
I think,
Well,
I think the thought process was for the base rate is to keep it as if that pot as affordable as possible and increase the tiers and charging people for the amount of water they're using.
Right, but you were willing to go to $10 with a 5% increase, so
Right.
why wouldn't we consider, because I like Alan's idea of going out many years, why wouldn't we keep that same theory about $10? So just make alternative K a $10 base rate quarterly increase with 3% annual to all tiers.
Dan, can you put that up on the?
yeah, I might be able to do it.
Just, I don't see what that
It'd be the
$2.
same as alternate $10 base rate, but $3 tier increase.
What? Right, but for the whole way across. Yeah,
Yeah,
gotcha.
we didn't do the math.
So we
on that.
could, but keep in mind with the $8 base rate and 3%, we are meeting our revenue goal.
Yeah.
So, adding the other $2 would be 1,000 pounds, $2. 80,000? 80,000 in additional revenue by the other $2. Which again, if we start going into over our revenue goal,
Right, the goal is
Okay.
to
No, just,
it's a fair question, it's a good question. But again, that's why we thought 10% of our budget to try to budget for keeping the rates as affordable as possible and still meet our capital plan, and spread it out as far as possible. But again, we still have to vote on rates every year, even though that's our plan for the next 10 years. And if nothing goes wrong, everything we've planned and budgeted for is right on target, regardless, every year. It still needs to get voted because we still have to have a public hearing so people have an opportunity to come out and ask questions or comments or anything like that. So K will put us a little bit higher as far as revenue, and G more maintains a level funded, and that's, again, that's but I thought, you know, my opinion would be to keep it as level funded, get the rates that we need to fund our projects and keep it affordable, so we have.
And two, one of the differences, you know, I think, is do we want to engage in rate increases annually in perpetuity, or with the 10 and the 2 5s, you know, we can do 10 2 5s and take a break for some period of time before having to raise rates again. So it's really that more.
Yeah, if we have a very dry, you know, our revenue is going to be higher. We may not have to raise rates in 23 or 24, or it could be very wet. And even though we've done this, we may have to have another increase to rates. It's just, everything's kind of up in the air. And again, this is just to give people an idea of what we're trying to do, how far out we're trying to go, and, you know, where we're going to be. Anything else? I mean, all great questions. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of information, Sandra.
I just wanted to add that every September when we look at the budget and we're preparing the budget for the next fiscal year, that's sort of around that time when we're looking at the revenue projections, and that weighs in on the rate hearing and what's going to come about, you know, in the months to follow. So in September, as a board, you generally commit to that projection. And when we did the projection, we did it based on G. At that time, that was what the board was supporting. So if we did shift to one of the other ones, we would just want to make sure that it's going to meet the revenue we projected for the budget. And another piece is, like, chemicals are going up. You know, we don't know until we look in September what, say, now this fiscal year has been and what we've spent. So when we start working on FY23's budget in September, some of this may change a little bit.
I mean, I'm not so set on K. I mean, G works, let's do it, and we have to vote it every year anyway. So let's go with
I mean, it's just a rough draft. I mean, really, it's a rough draft.
And just another, in that same vein, when the town was developing their budget, I did build a water rate calculator based off the G rate structure, because that was at the time what we had. So ultimately, all the departments and buildings did budget their water bill according to rate structure in alternate G. I think it would be less of a problem for them than it would for us if we switch, because their budget would go down and ours would be missing some revenue on the back end. So,
Or we could just not tell them.
Well, one thing with G is we get more money up front, and that's always a comforting feeling, you know, so.
Yeah, I you know, we're gonna keep going regardless, so, and you get 23, you're gonna talk about it again, so.
Yeah, we are.
You can go from there, so we, you know, it's shame on us for the last 5 years we didn't do anything. And we talked about it, you know, here and there, but, you know, take a vote.
Are we good for a vote? We all right for a vote? All right, so I did put a motion on to adopt scenario G. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
I'll be all right.
So,
All right, I'll be
So we-
then too. That's fine.
all right, so all in favor is an aye,
Aye.
and any opposed? All right.
all right.
All right, there we go.
So that is what we will publish at the rate hearing. Rate hearing date. It's the next.
That was a good discussion.
It was a good discussion.
Great discussion.
Yeah.
I wonderful.
So,
This would be a fun one. Sewer rate.
well, we can do the sewer rates first. All right. Sewer rates. So as a basis for, you know, coming up with sewer rates, what I did was evaluate Chatham's sewer rates. As I just mentioned, they have a different billing structure than we do. They have winter and summer billing. So what I did and what was included in the packet was just a kind of a one-to-one conversion from Chatham's rates to Harwich. Just as a starting point with the thought that we're sending our effluent to them. It certainly shouldn't cost us any more or, than them to treat it. So at least that's a good baseline. Also knowing that we have 440 customers that are going to hook up over the next 2 years and that the revenue generated with respect to sewer use fees is going to be considerably small, I expect, for the next 24 months. So for that, with the direct conversion, what I did was establish and this is an easier one to, so I broke this all up by sub-watershed for another project with the Pleasant Bay Alliance. But ultimately what I was able to do is take the actual water use data from 2013 to 2019 for each individual parcel in East Harwich. And then averaged out and took a 90% consumptive use. So the standard is that 90% of what goes in comes out. So using the 90% consumptive use and then applying our quarterly usage statistics, because that, with the tiered rate structure, when and how much you use that water is going to have a big impact on your sewer bill or your water bill. Winter, is going to be a lot less. Summer is going to be a lot higher. So in this, for this tool, just like we did with the water, we broke up the annual usage by quarter in which they would be using it. Converted then to our billing units. For example, quarter one, this property uses 17,325. We bill 1,000 gallon units, so they would be billed 17,000 gallons or 8,000 or 8 units the first year, 7. So you can see how this calculator works. Now we get over into our subtotal for each quarterly bill. So this is kind of the behind the scenes of the spreadsheet, so you can see kind of how it works. Now with the conversion sheet here, so we have a hypothetical base rate right now of $50. Now what this is set up to do, I can change that to 100, and then we go back to our summary sheet and you see it recalculates every bill for those customers, the 440 that would be connected. So this is really, a hope that we can use this as a tool depending on, the direction of how we want to establish sewer rates, because we are going to be operating at a deficit. We don't know which house is going to connect, when they're going to connect. They're going to trickle in, and as we start to build data, we can, adjust rates. But I think, at least in my opinion, starting with Chatham's is a reasonable thing to do.
And they still have 2 years to hook?
2 years to hook up.
Sorry.
Well, first, I have a few questions. What is our timing on having to vote sewer rates? I mean, this is such a huge, wide open topic. I mean, do they have to be done by July 1st, August 1st, September 1st?
I anticipate that, assuming everything goes well with contracts 1 and 2, we get approvals, we could be mailing orders to connect by the middle of July. I think it would be appropriate for us to have a rate structure established so that when people connect, they know what it is.
Right. Okay. So it's soon.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Welcome.
yeah. So I'm going to start with the first premise. And there's a lot in here that was really never discussed in this kind of detail over the years, so it's really a first shot. But I don't clearly see the relation between whatever our sewer rates might be and whatever Chatham's are, because I'm assuming Chatham's sewer rates are made up of, I don't know, were they made up of their cost for their treatment plant? Were they made up for their collection system? Were they made up for just the treatment? Depending on what made up their rates, we may have a totally different complexion. So until I learn more, I'm not going to agree that ours should be similar to Chatham's.
Question.
I need to know what's in Chatham's before I could say that we could be, totally different. But then beyond that, more importantly, my memory from many discussions was that the original East Harwich portion, both north and south, Phase 2 and the old Phase 3, which the two of them together were supposed to be, test my memory, about 1,100 parcels, the whole of East Harwich. And my memory of our intention, but there were a lot of different ideas going on at the time, was that those 1,100 homes should pay for the treatment of all of the water that they had treated. You know, the treatment, the chemicals, things like that. But I never felt that those homes should pay for capacity, administrative salaries, or, you know, any of those other things, because I always felt that every taxpayer, the universal taxpayer, was paying for those other things through our tax bill, through our debt exclusions, through SRF, through our own funding, you know, through wherever. So, you know, I'm always a little defensive about our East Harwich customers, you know, our first, but I think we need some big discussions about what are we trying to pay? And we don't have to wait for those people to be connected. You have the ability to list every home in the original Phase 2 and Phase 3 to see what that revenue would come out as. So right now on your chart, it's saying $226,000 for just the homes in Contract 1 and Contract 2 of Phase 2. But if we were to add on Contract 3 and all of the original Phase 3, let me say, you know, something crazy like you already did it, you little fox. Okay, so that came out to how much? I called him yesterday.
No, well, this is, I hid those columns in the other one.
Don't hide any
Yeah.
more columns
So-
on me. You'll get phone calls.
The sum of everything, the 1,196 customers,
Right.
only, hold on, step back to 50. It's gonna have a big impact. So everything would be $637,000.
Okay, a year. Right. So see, I'm proposing, and you know, I don't remember each facet of the IMA, the different charges, I'm sure you do, but I'm proposing that that's too much money. You know, that we don't need $637 from those customers. That part of the burden of the Chatham Treatment Center is the town as a whole's burden, which the East Harwich people are also they pay that also, you know, not as a, so it's a big topic, you know. I don't know where to go beyond that, but until I know what is it that we're trying to pay for, that's the bottom.
Well, I think, wasn't most of Chatham's system grant driven?
They had, my understanding is they had a fair amount of principal forgiveness, but that they are also operating in a similar capacity where their sewer operations are not self-funded. The debt exclusion, my understanding, is against the tax rate, and that they're operating at a deficit. Now, I guess I understand, because Noreen and I spoke about this, you know, briefly yesterday or the day before, and I get where all 10,000 properties through the reserve fund transfer to the sewer enterprise have funded the wastewater budget in the amount of $515,000 already, because that surplus has been transferred. And you know, with respect to what are our direct Chatham costs, our direct cost to Chatham so everything in this budget here that has an IMA prefix in the first column are IMA related expenses. So those are the salary and wages for DPW director in Chatham. We owe 23%.
Okay.
Water quality testing, electric for the wastewater treatment plant, all those things. So those items all total $158,000 of our operating budget. Now, in addition to that, we have our Harwich only expenses. Right now, our contract operations is looking to be around $175,000 annually. that's subject to go down. I'm still in conversations with DEP. Ultimately, DEP advised that pump stations with an average daily flow below 100,000 gallons per day can be inspected once a week, as opposed to those that are over 100,000 gallons a day have to be inspected daily. So our labor cost is going to be a lot cheaper.
See, I think, I'm sorry, you're fine, but see, that's the kind of thing that bothers me, because if I own a home in East Harwich, whether or not you, because of rules, have to inspect something once a year, once every 2 years, once every 6 months, shouldn't be my problem. You know what I mean? I feel it should be more, I mean, we never got to this level with discussions, I feel it should be more based solely on treatment. Maybe if I try it from another angle, let's say that 10 years go by and we're building a treatment plant at the transfer station. Does that mean that everybody on Herring River would have to pay for that entire plant, but that East Harwich people wouldn't have to pay for it?
I would think that it would be spread out like the East Harwich work, and that everyone would pay for it.
But once it's operating, I understand.
Oh, once it's operating,
Right.
how would...
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, and that gets to the, I guess, the more complexity of it, right?
Right.
Because the sewer enterprise, is supposed to be, we're supposed to be self-sufficient, like water,
Right.
we're self-sufficient. So how do we get there? And what's our goal to get there? Because if we're not, ultimately, I'm looking to Mike, we're going to be asking the general fund and the selectmen for a big chunk of money every year. So if we go in, and I've been trying to think about this since we talked, like if we go in and say, okay, well, East Harwich, you guys only have to cover the 158,000, and we're going to ask for 380 from the selectmen. I don't know that we can ask that in
Yeah.
perpetuity, and I think that we need to get to a point of self-sufficiency. Now, what's going to be interesting is balancing the equities of the deal we got in Chatham versus the deal that we're going to have building a plant here. We got a much better cost per kilogram removed in Chatham, having not had to build the plant, than we will if we build, our own transfer station. So if that debt, and another component too, when we talk about how much it costs, or the pump station inspections, right now there's 4 stations and a tiny little submersible one. I looked at 31 potential pump station sites yesterday. As the quantity of stations grows and the sewer collection system grows and those inspection frequencies do become more, frequent, that money's got to come from somewhere.
Right, no.
And I just would be concerned relying on the general fund for
Right,
without
no.
having a kind of a mechanism to climb out of it.
You're absolutely right. My problem is that, over the course of 10 or 15 years, we never got to this level of discussion of exactly who was going to pay for what. And, it was always a general statement that, well, the users, they'll pay for the, treatment and IMA, but they won't be able to do it right away, so the town will kick in the meantime, till we got up to both phase 2 and phase 3.
Right.
So this is like the initial discussion on
I think we gotta run you for select board.
no, I just got here.
Because
You're trying to get
She's trying to get rid of it.
No,
Did you see that?
I'm enjoying you. Just to back up.
All right, so that's,
No,
I'm
you're
confused.
No,
Yep.
and you're fine. But you raise a good question.
very good
So
question.
all right, so let's just back up a second. We have 400 customers that are capable of going online within the next month. And they're gonna pay a portion of the cost of operating the system. And what
Well,
they're,
In what, when you say
they're gonna have a sewer bill. They're gonna have a sewer
Right,
bill.
yeah, okay, yes.
Paying whatever we thought, I don't know, I'm throwing numbers out there, the $45 or whatever it is per whatever units they're disposing of. Whatever they're short, as 400 people, because they can't afford to pay for all this, the other funds are coming out of the general fund, I thought.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is, but I think what Noreen's getting to is what do we want to charge these people?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
You know, is it, you know, in general, the cost to treat wastewater is 2 to 3 times higher than the cost to produce clean drinking water.
Right.
You know, that is kind of reflected in the 2 to 3, you know, so we're probably a little higher than that in comparison to our water rates, you know, but it's, what do we want to charge them for?
Right.
Is there a point, so when I was mapping out the school program, the semester-wide program, I was trying to figure out how many classes, how many students and teachers would be optimal for the operations to be covered, right? Without without having to make a very high tuition. And I'm thinking about it the same way. Is there a certain number of houses once we get to then we can start putting in additional operation costs into the regular bill? But starting out, it's really just what's coming in, going out. And
So in a way, it's going to be, so right now where we're funded entirely from debt transfer, we have a bucket of money that was, you know, in the sewer enterprise fund that has been built up. Now that, my understanding, could have been used we could have appropriated from our sewer enterprise to support some of the sewer operating budget. Instead, it was a full transfer from reserve, from the general fund. We have the ability to, you know, I guess yes is I think the answer to your question, but how do we want to approach it? I mean, if we want to look at the wastewater operating budget, right, and say, you know, we should only be charging them the IMA costs, that, you know, that's all we should be charging them. Well, we look at this, we need to generate about $160,000 worth of revenue from our sewer, you know, the 440 customers. You know, if that's the wish, right?
but like checking the pump stations and paying for somebody to do that, isn't that kind of part of the IMA? I mean, because that's not real infrastructure, that's more maintenance, O&M, right?
There's really two components to that. So we have to pay for the labor cost for Chatham's wastewater treatment plant operators to inspect the combined pump station to, you know, as well as operate the treatment plant.
And they've separated that out from the flow cost, okay. It's not a package deal,
I'm sorry.
the costs. I mean, they don't include their employee costs, inspecting things in whatever.
No, well, it's built into the IMA. So
okay, it is built in.
it's so
okay.
the cost to operate the combined facility behind the corner store is shared through the IMA payments. You know, so that's built in already. Ours is not. So, you know, that $175,000 to operate our collection system is still outstanding.
Dan, hold on a second, Michael.
I think you had the same conversation in the last water set. And I guess first for Alan's benefit, you guys can pay for this. You have $1 million in your reserve account, so we're fine. We can operate.
That's a joke. He's making a joke.
But
Thank
Noreen,
you, Gary.
I think Noreen's question is a great question, but I think Dan has already, we have two costs, fixed cost and variable cost.
Right.
The variables is based on how many gallons we send to Jack. So that's the variable number that you guys are gonna have to wrestle with, because I probably, unlike Dan, think that we're gonna have to be met with great resistance on people hooking up to this system, other than those who want to hook up to the system, which I could say is probably 25% out of 100%, and that's an exaggerated number. So we did plan this. We did have the conversation in the CWMP, I believe is the breakdown of what people would spend if they pumped their systems on a normal schedule, 2 years and 3 years, I believe was what we used. So that was discussed as far as what they're paying now to maintain their current system and pump their current system versus what the rate was going to be. So I think that there's some basis for this. Sewer rates are sewer rates. I mean, any community that has a sewer system we can do it based on gallons for and the IMA calls for how much we have to. So the fixed costs are the first thing we have to pay for, because whether we have the 600 homes or the 1,100 homes, our fixed costs are our fixed costs. And I believe the fixed costs were based on 600, weren't they, Dan, not 1,100?
Fixed. So, well, fixed costs in our budget are based off the 23.08% applied to whatever Chatham the budget was for that line item.
Okay, so those are the first costs. So I think where Maureen's going, we can't make this a ridiculous expense for the people in East Harwich that hook up to it. And the infrastructure we are paying through our tax rate. And it was said in the very beginning, we all created this problem, we all need to fix it, not just the people in East Harwich. So I think, you can revisit this thing, and you just have to come up with a basis that's not a ridiculous cost for the people in East Harwich that are gonna hook up. I fully expect that we're gonna come back year after year after year for the next 5 to 10 years with some sort of payment from the general fund. And hopefully the board will adopt something out of the short-term rental tax where that money is going into, which I know there's a lot of conversations that are going to be had this year, because we're going to drive it. But we're going to come up with other funding sources, recognizing that we have to pay for maybe the fixed costs come out of the general fund, and we try and cover the system out of flow, or vice versa. But I think Dan has looked at enough communities to come up with a basic rate to say less, and that's just my opinion as a taxpayer, not as a board.
So it's not gonna really be based on what Chatham charges their people.
No.
It's more looking at lots of different.
Well, and that's kind of, if we want to look at just covering fixed costs at 140,000, that's all. I take me 2 minutes to, you know what I mean, to punch in the right number and figure out what the right dollar value is.
And by no means am I suggesting that you do that, but again, a non-ridiculous rate for the people in East Harwich that are going to tie in, and as much as you can cover with that rate, obviously, the less the taxpayers are going to have on the other end.
Can I answer a couple of Michael's? Thanks. So I'm not concerned, well, I shouldn't say I'm not concerned, it's money, but about the in-between time, we'll call it. Whether we have 400 hooked up or 600 or, who knows what would happen with phase 3 anyway. But I feel that the rate should be based on the full 1,100, as if they were. And whatever we get from the revenue from the 300 or 400 that are hooked up, great. And somewhere we will get that transfer, not that we try to squeeze it all. That was always the plan on that. I will say, Michael, that I went back to those brochures and tracked through every number again, because I never agreed with them, in 2014. And just because things made it into brochures didn't mean, as Dan knows and as Michael knows, that everybody in the room agreed. And they are so off, that they were off then, but they're even so much more off now. In order to get those numbers to be in equity between the non-hooked up person and the person that is hooking up, it presumes, the brochures created by CDM presumed that you would build your new septic tank today, you'd pay an annual payment on your loan. They actually had for 25 years, which the loan structure only goes for 20 anyway. And then the day after that, you'd build a new one again. They didn't allow for that 10 years or everything that everybody in Harwich has a 30, 35-year-old septic tank, So I can't agree with that, that was designed by Christopher Clark to come out to the penny. Even to say to the world, see, it's all the same. It's true. It's frankly not, but does
that I bucked that when you brought that.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
it's
know.
going to pay 100%. Just for clarification, if I may, Mr. Chair. Dan, the IMA and the gallons that we purchased was 300,000 gallons per day.
Yep.
That 300,000 gallons per day was a projection based on 640-ish homes, not the 1,100. The 1,100 was a build-out for later.
Phase 8.
That's right.
So it's based on not 1,100 homes as you
Yeah.
guys calculate.
No.
It's based on 600 and change,
I think it's
Yeah.
650 something.
which then dropped after you did your work. You dropped that under 600 if we complete contract 3.
Right.
So it's really based on
Yeah,
600
okay,
homes.
you're right,
And then the build out will be later if we get to that.
yeah. And the old history, what does it matter now?
Yeah,
We're
agreed.
right here.
I have to go. I apologize. I have another meeting. Are you doing his evaluation today?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. I just was going to make a few comments, but
All
I'll
right.
save it for the next meeting. You guys have
His
your,
evaluation's due July 1st.
you guys have your hands full with this great thing, and good luck.
Thanks, Mike.
We knew we would.
Yeah.
That's why we
Like I
need
said,
two more
now,
members.
stand there and $1 million, you can cover the difference.
That's not gonna happen. Thank you, Michael.
Well, actually, that makes a huge difference. I had forgotten that the phase 3 was gonna come out of an add-on to the plan, so the 600 makes this more in line in my mind. One general question I have is, why do sewer rates have tiers? They just always did?
Yeah, I mean,
Terrible
conservation
having
of
somebody
use,
new.
you get them on, you get.
This is not terrible,
You know.
believe me. This is not
No,
terrible.
this is good.
This is
Healthy
fantastic,
discussion.
Questions are great.
Will they be able to meter the,
So it's based,
irrigation?
yeah. So there's an option to do a separate sewer deduct meter,
Okay,
only for the purpose of deducting outdoor irrigation
Right.
from your sewer bill.
I get tons of people asking me that.
Yeah. So Dan, can you just go on to what
Yeah.
you came up with, what you calculated for a rates, and just give us an idea of what we're looking at?
Yeah, so again, this was the direct conversion with some slight tweaking, because Chatham gives away the first 7,480 gallons of wastewater. So to average out their winter and summer tiers to get, the hybrid and correlate it to what our gallon per tier system is, we'd be looking, and I kept a $50 base rate. That's the average quarterly base rate from Chatham, with the rate structure as presented. So the tier 1, $5.03, tier 2, $5.43, tier 3, $5.83, and tier 4, $6.05. The contracts 1 and 2, 440 parcels at full build out would collect approximately $226,413 annually in revenue. Which
From the 600-ish homes.
so this is from the 4. This is from the 440 that we'll be able to connect in July.
And again, this is projected revenue.
Yes.
If that was the 600, you did the 1,100 for me before.
So I can
That'll
add-
quiet me down.
I don't want you getting quiet.
No,
So
don't worry
this
about it.
has 616 parcels for contracts 1, 2, phase 2, contract 3, phase 3, and phase 8. Am I messing up? So I can pull out all these.
I don't want to mess up here. Don't save it.
So do we want to keep in phase 3?
No,
So just phase
no,
2.
because Michael reminded me that was going to have, an added capacity to the plant. It just might make it seem fairer to me. how much they're paying.
So that's 667. Now I believe what Mike was referring to may have been these, when he said we'd reduce that down further. So one of the components, there were 657
Right.
parcels. If we
Where
look,
are you seeing that?
when you highlight here,
Yeah?
if you look, some.
Oh, okay. I
This
can't
is the
see that.
average count.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Can
So
you make that brighter?
not
Not right now, but later. Sometime I
This
can't.
thing's difficult in that.
All right.
Actually, can we turn lights on?
yeah. So what's
So
bottom
jumping over to
line?
here, once the lights are off, Mike.
Okay.
It's a
So
little better.
That's much better.
see this brown section right here,
Yep.
the Muddy Creek well. So the dark shaded blue are parcels that were included in contract 2 of phase 2. The highlighted ones in green that are not filled in are phase 2 contract 3 that haven't been built.
Right.
Now, there's some concern about how much or whether or not we should be getting nitrogen mitigation credits for parcels sewered within the well subwatershed. DEP's kind of gone back and forth on it. The latest is they said that you could get credit as it was identified in the MEP report. Now that said, we're withdrawing the water from the ground within this brown area. It's not making it to Muddy Creek. We're pumping it out, we're treating it, and it's going into our water
I
system.
see. Yeah.
So in all reality, the question I ask myself is, should we be getting nitrogen mitigation credits, even though they're giving them to us? They're giving them to us. And phase 8, if you recall, was the backup phase, where
Right.
if we sewered everything and we didn't hit our TMDL, we got phase 8 as a backup. Well, I'm looking at this now saying, why are we going to sewer these parcels if we're withdrawing the water out of the ground, only to then have to add more on the back end in phase 8? Why don't we sewer outside of the well subwatershed? So by pulling those out, it hasn't been formally excluded.
I see.
It hasn't, you know what I mean? So I think it's appropriate to go with the 667 now, just because there hasn't been a formal determination as to what to do there yet.
Right.
But looking at the 667, we'd be generating altogether, including phase 3, about
I
343,000.
can't read that number. That's what I've been waiting for. Can you read that to me?
362.
Thanks. Now I
That
feel
helps.
really
Yeah.
That does
silly,
help,
yeah.
He's got young eyes.
Well, I'll tell you, I feel better. I mean, I don't feel exactly right about each number on the thing,
None of
but
us do.
that
Yeah.
seems like a more reasonable number for that area to pay towards the IMA than when it was the 1,100 homes and it was going to be like 600,000.
But you're absolutely right. This was all created. This was all being discussed. We were basically kept. I don't want to say we were kept in the dark. We weren't invited.
Right.
We were kept in the dark.
Questions and comments that Dan kept bringing up were just ignored. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, here it is.
Right. Do it.
July 1st, you guys have to come up with something, and then Dan's scrambling to try and come up with rates.
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely absurd how this has been handled and put together. But this is where we're at. I mean, and it really is.
Listen, we said that 10 years ago.
Right. It's absurd
Yeah.
that, we're going to be taking over the wastewater part of it, but we're never invited to meetings, never asked for our input. How many times did Dan ask, like, what, as the selectman, like, what's your thought for rates? Like, where do you see it going? Until they officially said, Dan, here you go, take it
Yeah,
over.
do it.
So, I mean,
That's
this
what
is
I meant
catch up.
about you running for select.
Oh, okay.
But this
No,
is-
no. You're
this is-
stuck with me, Judith.
But this is catch up.
Should have
This is,
happened there 10 years
but
ago.
this is
Listen,
basically catch up.
Tony and I were disgusted enough.
Yeah, we have history.
And be more disgusted.
So yeah, this is what we're doing. We're doing catch up, and we're trying to come up with the most fair rates that we can for the people that are being forced to hook up
Yep.
to the system and make it financially affordable, and the town's going to have to come up with the revenues
And again,
to do this.
to the Chatham to Harwich conversion, was really a starting point, and really what I kind of had to do to build the workbook to do the calculations for me, so that if the board comes to a consensus and says we want to collect $350,000 in revenue from the 650 houses, it's set up so I can just back
Right.
into that with
So,
Who's responsible for maintenance
on.
on us?
So for like day-to-day operation and maintenance is going to be Weston and Sampson.
Okay.
For like large capital stuff, if we had to reside the building, a small capital improvement project, that would be procured through me, through the town. Allocating money from,
But from manhole to manhole, that's us.
that's manhole, meaning
Stoppages, anything that's
Weston and Sampson,
okay.
and then there's maintenance that's not included in their scope of work, like jetting,
Yeah,
the collection system. So I have a quote from Truex, one of the subcontractors that does that work. We're also meeting with Chatham on the 22nd to follow up on a couple IMA related things. One being a request for extension for the milestone payments. So the way that the IMA payments have laid out, we will be making a $1.5 million payment upon commencement of flow. And then there's a second payment due 50,000 gallons per day or 5 years after the signature, they signed the IMA, which is also this year. So we'd be paying $3 million. So we're discussing that. And I sent them a memo back in March requesting them to provide us with a rate structure to use their back truck, to use their crane truck. So we will have, a standalone agreement with Chatham for use of their like rolling stock, back truck, that sort of stuff, with a manpower component to it, because we'll only have one operator. So that one operator will do the, day-to-day maintenance checks. There's a provision if they need to derag a pump, pull a pump, go into a confined space to bring someone else in. And then there's a separate agreement with Chatham that we need to work out to obtain use of their equipment, which would then negate us needing to use Truex, the
right.
pump.
So we don't have to come up with the money for all the equipment.
Right, exactly.
Maureen?
I get nervous when I hear the word maintenance, John, because, only because, the whole purpose of this is to lower the nitrogen, specifically there, but for the whole town. So that again makes me think, but I'm not gonna, why should the specific each Starwich household be paying for the maintenance of a system that's gonna lower the nitrogen for all of us, but I don't wanna go there.
Yeah,
It's,
I get it. And that's the thing. Like, I understand. Me and Sandy talked about it and wrestled with it the other day. Cause I'm like, I understand where you're coming from, because
Right.
the 10,000 residents gave that $500,000 to the town through their taxes. That was then transferred to
Yeah.
support the budget. Like, I'm with you. I'm following you on that.
I don't have like a position
Yeah.
or an answer, it's just,
The other part, the
Right.
other part on my end is I'm thinking, okay, that's great. I get that, but also we're gonna have to reside this building.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a pump that fails. I'm gonna have, something that we need to fund that, we do need to generate some
Right.
sort of revenue for the department that's independent.
No,
If
you're
we gotta replace a generator, that sort of stuff. So it's,
So when I did out the math as best I could with this, I came out to, I do probably have it somewhere, an average annual bill for, I guess for 400 of $600 a year.
Can you read that?
pick a parcel.
Well, no, I based it on your 70,000 gallon customer.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think of the biggest money. Yeah, this is probably the biggest one. So taking all these. The average of all these is $521.
Okay, well,
The
let's
bill.
call it 550 then. So if somebody's paying an average 70,000, that's not a tremendous amount of water, right? Now that I have irrigation, it's certainly not.
I think
You'll be able to take the irrigation off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
That might be over my skill level, but,
And that's another component too.
right.
This is based on 90% water use.
Yeah.
There's no way you're drinking 70,000 gallons of water. So if you did separately meter it, you look at some of these bills in this that are, this is $6,600. This is 1421 ordinance. So that's Stop and
That's a
Shop.
plaza. That's
Yeah.
a plaza.
Route 400 East.
So
1421, it's one of the plazas.
Yeah.
So if we're saying an average on 70,000 gallons of 550, now their water bill with possible new rates would be what, about 300 on that, 325 or something?
That's 70,000 gallons?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me.
What a pain I am, huh?
No, these are
Oh.
good. This is good.
Yeah, no,
You're
good question.
educating me, come on.
I just wish we were on on Zoom or something, so this is getting recorded.
It is
so-
getting
It's
recorded.
getting recorded.
We're recording
And I'm glad-
audio.
I'm so glad we're not on
And the
Zoom.
cameras are coming, the kids down
The
here.
cameras are coming.
We have cameras coming.
Once the rates go out, every YouTube session will be found. We
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
Because I think it's helpful. You're asking great questions.
No.
So I just want to. Everything's in such bulk. Hold on, I gotta find the table that has my water rate stuff.
It's like, because we're setting these for the first time, it's so easy to make a mistake in logic. And that's all I'm
Mhm.
trying to do. It would be just so easy to, I think this is a really difficult project.
It is.
It is.
Also, given that we don't really know the future of the path of the CWMP or, anything.
Yeah, the unknowns.
Yeah, what about
The unknowns have been catching us
There's
for a
more unknowns
while.
than anything else.
Yeah.
All right, this can work. All right,
I should have done the math for you, Dan.
all right. So we want just for 1 quarter or the annual cost.
Annual.
All right, so 70,000 for the year. Well, when do you use the 70,000? Because if you use
Right.
most of it in the summer, your bill's going to be a lot different than if. So, for example, right, this is 46, 50, 60. So this is 71,000 gallons.
Okay.
Okay, so for the water bill annually would be
All right,
$492 for
$500.
70,000.
So for that customer in general, not
$1,000.
specifically, it's $1,050 a year
Yeah.
for their sewer and water bill.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Okay,
that's
that's right.
it. That's actually too high.
Okay,
Because
good.
this is the cemetery property. There's static charges here, so we would have to
All right.
exclude $380 of that.
Wow.
Oh, well,
So there's
that's,
$100 seasonal turn on, turn off fee that they pay to turn it on and off the irrigation of the cemetery, and then I think the 280s reflective of the back.
well, what did we use on the water rates we just put with that
Can you
annual
put any
amount?
address in there, Dan?
I haven't built it yet for any address. Only this is what I built for the town departments to
Alright.
use to estimate
Okay,
their
gotcha.
water bill.
But remember the chart we just had up that had, this annual versus
Oops,
that
sorry.
annual and
Yes.
water?
This one.
Of course, I can't find it now, but,
This?
yeah. So those were
I don't think
annual-
that's on 70,000 gallons though.
No, I
believe
don't either, but.
That is on, is it 10? I can find it here.
So unfortunately, I have to go because I have to go to work.
Yeah.
Alan, can you take
Yeah.
over?
Yeah.
I'm sorry I kept everyone so long. but
Noreen,
it's a
this
big
was
topic.
great. This was great conversation.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be sorry for.
Okay.
There's no question that's a silly question. It was
Alright.
educational, and like I said, this is gonna be a fantastic board. I'm very excited
Oh,
going forward.
me
I
too.
really am. It's great. Got a lot of good knowledge, a lot of good questions. But I do have to go.
And hopefully we won't start off every year with regulations followed by rates.
Right. I mean, really, for your
Really,
second meeting, this is a lot.
Nobody
That's why-
told me that last
Right,
February.
Right, yeah, we kept that, but that's why I wanted to start off here, so that you guys have an idea of what's going on, so.
When
Don't
do
think-
you need to publish?
Yeah, to have the water rates, in the paper for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
legal ad, and we need to set a hearing date.
Oh.
And the last 3 days of June would be a good time to do that, so that we can make it, or the board can make it effective July 1st.
Yeah.
So I think that's the 28th, 29th, or 30th.
Yeah.
If you wanted to set a time, if it's convenient, that way we could put it in the paper for the public hearing.
Whatever you guys decide for a time, I would say earlier, the better, just so we have time.
My only concern is when do we have to publish that, because we need to have sewer rates on paper, right?
Were we gonna do the sewer rates as well as the water rates?
If we want to do them at the same time.
Well, that was
That's
the,
the,
I-
either
we
that or
wanna
you gotta
let-
do another rate hearing after the fact, so I guess.
yes, if you want to do, water and sewer together, then it would be making a decision on the sewer rates at this meeting to stay on the schedule
Right,
with the water
yeah,
rates.
that's fine. Whatever the board
But it-
agrees upon, it's fine with me.
Or,
I don't feel like
'Cause
we're
this
ready to hammer that out
You
yet.
know, I don't
Right.
see us needing a sewer rate. I mean,
Well,
we
are
don't
they,
have
when
anybody
are they
hooking
turning
up.
on?
Can I ask a question? I mean, could our sewer rates be as of July 15th or August 1st? Do they, you know?
We could hold a
Absolutely.
rate here, another rate here to
Right.
discuss just the sewer rates, July 15th or whatever, but it's just backing into,
Yeah,
if
no,
we're
I
gonna
know
go
it's more
15,
publishing and everything, but
Yeah.
it's
which is
so
fine.
scary,
It's just-
yeah.
I
I
just
think we just
didn't
need to
want
get it right. We just need to get it right.
too far.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
I'm
Whatever the
ready to
board,
see
whatever the
this.
board decides, I'm good with. I do. I agree with the board. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable that, we're all trying to do the right thing by the customer. So I mean,
Yeah.
See you
what do we
again.
need to do?
Yeah,
Um,
on sewer, we have time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
good.
would agree.
I feel
would agree
better
with that too.
putting it,
Yeah, it's just so
July-
much information. I mean, right off the bat, I mean, we're all
Yeah.
still struggling.
So
with
let's
it.
plan water that first couple days the last couple days in June.
Yep.
And then the next meeting, do we want to do it sooner than later so we can try to get
Sooner than
the
later.
sewer rate discussion done in
Yeah.
time that we can do a sewer rate hearing sometime
Yeah.
later in
I
July?
would say sooner than later. And then whatever time you want to do, I would say earlier the better, so that we have time to have the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan. It was good to see you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi, Gary.
Yeah, that's all right.
So let's say that the average 70,000, because, I like ballparks, was like 300, a year, just for rough numbers. All I'm trying to say is like, that would be the 70,000 gallon person who does not have an irrigation meter, would be paying 800 or 900 a year. I mean, do we feel okay about that? I guess that's what I'm saying. And it might be interesting to look to see what, I know we don't compare towns, but just where this is so new,
Mhm.
but to see where, normally I would never look at other towns, but it's brand new, but to see where the customers of that ilk are paying in Chat. Are they paying 1,000 a year if they have both? I don't know,
I think you've had that, right?
I have
with the water and sewer combined.
the 2010 looking for the time bond, the statewide sewer rate study that they have.
You'd have to combine it with their water to really,
Yeah, they have water and
Okay.
so time
Yeah.
bond, and that's actually the reason we use them is they do probably the most comprehensive water and sewer rate analysis
Yeah.
I know they do Massachusetts, I know they do Connecticut, I don't know if it's just Mass and CT or not,
Mhm.
but they have, and they
okay.
unify it so that everything is compared by the same unit in gallons. So they take 10,000 gallons or whatever they determine. They're just trying to find that sheet.
Are you on their website?
No, you have to download it. I know it's on
Oh.
our server somewhere. I just don't know where it is. I thought it would be on rates. And then
I don't know that I downloaded it. Did we?
I have something
Okay.
there. Coming at you. There's one. There's two. So these are 2017. I believe there's a 2019 one coming. They do it every other year.
Mm-hmm.
So for Chatham's annual cost for 120 cubic feet.
And that means a lot.
Yeah. So this is the apples to apples comparison for the same consumption so they have, it's, yeah, sorry. Trying to make them so you can see them side by side here.
So that where it says 637, is that water and sewer combined for Chatham?
Water and sewer combined would be the 637 plus the 431. So they're at 1,078.
Okay,
And
because
then,
that'll be one of the first things that, our residents that are hooking up will look at.
and then looking at, right, so remember that's 431. We're at 376 for the same.
Right, so they're running around 1,000.
So would
So we would be
At
in the
scale, be
same.
around 900 and change.
Is there anything else that you can think of that we should like look at in the next week or so? I mean,
For sewer,
yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, the thing that I struggle with is, Mike alluded to, I don't know how many people are going to connect.
Right.
I mean,
So they're not required to.
they have 2 years to do it. Now, I know that there's a property on Southwest that has a failed septic. I know there's a property on Hardin Lane that has a failed septic. I know there's a guy on Auckland Way that's building a new house that doesn't want to put in a septic system, so they're waiting for the sewer. But outside of the small handful that I know of, I don't know how many people are going to be eager to hook up. And, I just feel like this is going to be something that we kind of have to
Right.
take in stride.
but-
And,
But see, I think you're too close to the trees because see, that issue doesn't bother me in the slightest, only because we're setting these for the first time. So I'm going to assume that 667 homes are going to connect, and whatever isn't, and that we'll pick the right rate for assuming in our imagination all 667 homes are connected.
Yeah.
And whatever happens in the meantime, we'll get the money from the taxpayers as a whole, or from the, wherever. That was always the
Well,
plan.
that was always the plan.
Always
Yeah,
the plan, yeah.
So let me, one thing.
So you're so close thinking about this one house and that. I'm just going with 667 and,
So one of the difficult things with looking at it from more holistically, if you
Yeah.
will, encompassing the whole 600 plus, is there's a lot of unknown costs with the 600 plus. One being, I got a quote from Weston and Sampson for $300,000 to operate the phase 2 collection system.
I see,
Now that phase 2 is scaled back,
right,
I'm looking at $175,000. We didn't really take out that many pump stations.
right.
I don't know how much electricity, which, for the water department, for example, our electric bills, $390,000 for a year.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unknowns to
Yeah.
try to approximate, and that's what I ultimately, for the sewer budget, right? So I can show you how I did it. I gotta go to mine. Hold on. All right. So what I did for estimating the wastewater budget is, the 2-year order to connect, right? So our flow variable costs are based upon a percentage of how much flow Harwich is going to generate as compared to Chatham. So for, to develop that, these are Chatham's actual monthly flows. For the 1-year order to connect, you got to make assumptions, right? So I had to, how many have to connect per month for 12 months to get to 440, so now I'm backing into our flow values, right? To try to compare what our estimated flows might be versus a 1-year order to connect, a 2-year order to connect, or what Chatham described as their monthly hookup rate of 5 sewer septic systems, a month. Then when we look at our contract, which one's this? Okay, our water consumption, our average daily water use, salary and wages. There was also, or the con ops estimate. Okay, so it was 375,000, apologies, for the total contract sum at build out with 5 stations. So 5 stations, 70, so there's a lot of kind of big assumptions. So I don't know how much more we're going to gain by running, extrapolating the unknown. until we start to get some sort of data, I guess. So I'm happy to look at anything that I'm just kind of running out of
Right.
stuff to look at because I've tried to use everything that is a real number that we have, at this point.
Now, we will have an opportunity to make adjustments as we go ahead. But,
Absolutely.
I don't know any other way
Right.
that you're gonna finalize this.
If it was up to me and I could make the decision, I would like to go in conservative at a more reduced rate and have to adjust upward as needed because there's just so many unknowns. And,
Yeah.
we got to be aware that right before they pay their first sewer bill, they're going to be paying $10,000
That's
to a contractor
Yeah,
that has to connect that pipe to the street. So, we don't.
I was gonna ask this question later, but when you say paying 10,000 to the contractor, I don't think it's on our website, but maybe it should be. I haven't heard anybody talk about the tax credit for connecting in a few years, and homeowners can get up to $15,000 off of their connection, and it's a tax credit. It's not like you make 100,000, now you're going to be taxed on 85. It's if you're paying 10,000 in tax, you get it all free. And I have that information if we want to put it on the water website, because now is when, and you spread it. It can be spread over 4 years, which is unfortunate for the people who hired engineers way back, years ago when they, before things got a little crazier. But now is when
How
people.
much information is that?
It's not.
Because I'm thinking we have to send. The orders to connect are going to go out.
Oh,
I
it's a
would
one
like.
pager.
I want to include with the
Oh,
order to
that would
connect.
be wonderful.
The licensed utility installers
Yes.
list, the licensed,
Yeah.
people who can do the design stuff.
Where did you see that?
Oh, I talked to the state years ago, and I tried to get it promoted through the town, and I
Yeah.
stood at public comment every week for
Yeah,
about
that's
3
right.
months
That's
talking
right.
about.
Yeah.
But it just kind of fizzled,
Septic
and I don't know if Charlie Sumner was pushing it out there, but
I don't know.
I don't know. But my end is
That'd be
financial,
great
so
to
I'm
have,
always
yeah.
thinking that way. But yeah, let me
Yeah.
see what I have if I can get a one page.
Yeah.
Because I want to put the whole
Actually,
packet
yeah.
together.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
What it was, it's the same thing that was used for years on septic,
Yeah.
but they extended it to cover
Yeah.
sewer
So
connections.
It's a
Yeah.
found if they did that too.
Right,
Yeah.
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 So
Because
I'll get
I want to include all that.
that would be
because
great.
I don't-
Oh,
I forget where
For their
that place was
information,
in
but-
Barnstable too, they did it.
I'll find you a
Because,
couple of
nobody
documents.
wanted to hook up, they couldn't afford it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, all right, great. I'll send in a couple and we can pick what we want.
Beautiful.
Good. I don't know where else to go with this.
Well, we have some time
Yeah.
between now and the next meeting, so I would invite any and all of you to come in and
Yeah. Okay.
run through any
Yeah,
option that we're thinking of. And I can build a couple scenarios based on these conversations. Trying to only fund the direct IMA costs and what rate structure would be required to support that. A couple different variations. If there's any other specific things that you guys are looking for, if you could, drop me a line, I can prepare that information.
can you send me the thing with the IMA I know it's in your budget, but rather than go fishing,
Which one here?
like your budget, no.
This one?
Or no, the one you had up originally.
This one?
The one that shows treatment, Western, that I can't read that, but that's probably it.
This is the wastewater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
give me something in front of me to.
Yeah, and then this
Yeah.
is the IMA
Right.
costs.
Right, that's,
Yeah.
if you can
Yeah,
send me that.
yeah.
I know it's in the budget
Yeah.
book. but-
Likewise.
Do you want it in Excel? Now we can
Yes.
go up around. Okay,
Oh,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll share it.
thank you.
with
All
everybody.
right. Yeah, that's cool.
Two things to note just while we're talking about the wastewater budget. There are two changes that I would like to share with the board. One being the contract services for the IMA line item, which is reflecting the cost that Harwich pays for Chatham to treat Harwich's wastewater. So the treatment plant operators, that stuff. Initially, the IMA states that we owe 23.08% of Chatham's contract services line item. I brought up that their contract services line item for 621 doesn't just include their treatment plant, but also includes their collection system, pump stations, and pipes and things that we shouldn't be paying for. So in the budget that was approved at town meeting, this line item was $143,442. After going back and forth with Weston and Sampson and Chatham, it's now going to be the $90,000 mark. So we saved $50,000 there. And then
Nice.
we also had budgeted about $185,000 for operation of the Harwich collection system. The newest quote I have is the 175, but that's also still reflecting the daily inspections. I put together a sewer shed map and all the. So a sewer shed is everything collecting to one pump station. So if all their flow generates, like I said, more than 100,000, so I had to demonstrate that to DEP. I provided that to them 2 days ago, so I'm still waiting to get their confirmation back. But once we get it in writing from DEP that our inspection frequency will go down, I expect that line item to drop fairly significantly as well. So, pending good news.
All good work.
So yeah, those are the two notes on the wastewater budget. Before we get
By the way, another thing I got, I had Barnstable County Septic people give me an updated amortization of exactly what people would pay if they used that $15,000 loan.
great.
So I have that 9 pages, so maybe I'll
And that's
send
the
it.
septic loan program, where if that's independent of what you were just talking
No,
about.
the
So it's
actually
same.
from them, from the septic,
Okay,
you know, so
excellent.
I have that.
All right, so, on the next meeting agenda, we'll be sure to include the sewer again. We'll make a date.
Yeah, do you guys want to try to do a date now, or do you want to have Tracy circulate and see what works? It's up to you.
Oh, I mean, I don't care. We come up with, we need to do it, within 2 weeks, right?
So I am actually, we could do,
We need to get completed before the end of June.
Full water, right?
So we could,
so we're all set with the water after today.
yeah.
And the sewer,
If we could get it, so we could have a public hearing sometime early July.
Don't you have to do it?
We have to do it before the end of the
Yeah.
fiscal year?
well,
Either the 28th, 29th, or
No.
30th?
for the water rate hearing,
No, the water rates, we
we
want,
were gonna do the 28th, 29th, or 30th for the rate hearing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we wanted to do, we need to pick that date so we can advertise.
yeah, that's right.
I'm open all 3. Is the,
The Wednesday's the 30th, that's the one. We've been meeting Wednesdays at 1. I don't know if that still works for everybody, or the other 2 days are Monday or Tuesday.
is the 30th cutting it too close with, no? I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
know what else you have
I
to
think
do.
at that point, 29th, 30th, you know, we're
Boy, that whole extra 24
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. But I think, if we did the 30th,
At 1 o'clock?
at 1,
Was Gary saying making it earlier in the day? Is that what
but I
he
thought he
meant?
was talking about for the sewer rate.
I don't know.
Yeah, for sure, as he said earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally,
This is just for water, right?
We're in and out of here.
Thanks, Ellen.
And then I think, so I'm actually out on vacation starting this afternoon.
Oh,
Well, staycation, and
Oh.
I'll be working Monday and Tuesday, even though I'm not working Monday, Tuesday. The selectmen's meeting and
That's right.
another one. But so I'm intending on returning on the 16th So if we wanted to do another meeting the following week, the 21st through the 25th,
The 23rd is another Wednesday too, if you wanted to just stick with Wednesdays as the theme.
or if I may
Oh, yeah.
propose a Thursday, because I did at some point wanted to bring in GHD to discuss the scope of services for the Route 28 water main design, and
Yeah.
Thursday did work better for him, and I wanted to bring Tom Sexton, is it GZA, I think it is, who's a consultant who put together a proposal for the well exploration. So I wanted to bring them in and give them an opportunity to go through the project scopes, the board, and give you guys an opportunity to ask,
Yeah.
any questions before we make any moves. So if the 24th
Of June, correct?
of June could work.
What time?
I've got Affordable Housing Trust it from 1 to 3.
We want to do earlier for that one, and we can touch on the sewer rates if we did the 24th in the AM.
Yeah, does anybody know Gary's?
I think he's still working overnight, so I think he's fine in the
Morning's
morning.
better.
Yeah, 10
Yeah.
or
I have an appointment that Thursday morning, but I'm willing to switch it because there's an awful lot we're trying to fit in, so it's not like a critical appointment.
and we have the enterprise fund workshop.
I thought there was November when I looked it up.
There was a November one and a June one.
Oh, get out of
Yeah,
here.
June 23rd. John, we reserved, I think we were allowed to get 4 seats. The Abrams group is giving a workshop on enterprise fund,
Okay.
and we got seats. I'm gonna go. I haven't been to a formal enterprise fund class. We've been working out of it.
When I
6
looked
years
that
back.
up, it said 2020, the June date.
I'll-
And I double checked it and I said, well, it's gotta be the November one. I don't even know why we're talking about this now, but I wrote it down in November.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
So the 20,
Yeah, wait a minute.
I wrote down the November 10th date because the other one said 2020 and I said, well, somebody sent me a sample.
Yeah, Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021. 9 to
Really?
noon.
All right, I'm just blind. That's okay.
But yeah, so I can share information on it if you're available. If you want to attend, you're more than welcome. If you can't, you don't want to, that's totally fine as well.
What is it?
So the water department operates an enterprise fund, which is essentially a separate independent financial entity from the town.
Okay.
So we're funded solely through the sale of water. We get no
Right.
money out of taxes.
Right.
So, and also surplus revenues, we were talking about the budgeted surplus, that stays in that retained earnings account. So there's a number of budgeting, accounting, financial reporting, things like that that go along with operating an enterprise fund. A lot of it is probably more internal to, someone like Sandy and I.
Yeah.
But there's some other stuff there might be, but I'm going to attend and I can certainly relay.
Is it a Zoom or a go?
He said it was going to be remote, so
Okay,
I haven't got any credentials or anything yet. So.
right. Can somebody, I would like to attend. I can't drive off the Capes, but,
Yeah, I confirmed with him. He said it was going to be remote.
okay. Can somebody send me something
Yeah,
on it?
I'll forward
Because
Yeah, me too. Just
I must have got the year before.
it's
I went to
Zoom,
the
I'll go.
Abraham site, and that was when it said 2020. I don't know, something.
Yeah, their
The
website.
site's not updated.
that-
site is
all
not
right,
updated.
all right. I'm not going complete.
I
So
didn't
I put down the November date, saying, well, they must have meant November. What are they?
I went on looking as well.
Okay,
That
all
one
right.
doesn't seem to be listed on his website, and
Yeah.
it is limited to 4 people, Dan.
Mhm.
So I
Well, that's all
wasn't.
right. I won't.
I know.
I don't need to go.
Dan's on. I think. Judith, did you have an interest in the enterprise fund class? I feel like you did.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would
Alan.
like to.
No, I think you passed, and Gary. So there was
Yeah.
one other between the
That's
two
you.
newest members.
Yeah,
Do you
I'll
want to
take
draw
that,
straws?
You keep talking about those manholes.
That's
and
right,
things.
that's all I need.
We got our holes.
That's
right.
There will be other opportunities, I'm sure, in the future to do it again.
So that's the 23rd, and it's remote,
Remote 9 to noon is
9
what.
to noon. Okay. And if somebody could possibly, or if it's on his website, I'll find it.
I just
again.
forwarded you the
Thank you. All
in
right.
your
Because
inbox.
I know I saw 2020, but I feel better now.
All right, so you do want a meeting on the 24th,
24th, I think, would be good to,
and what time?
because if we did
That's for water, right?
Yeah.
that, well, 24th, I think, to discuss sewer rates.
Yeah.
Okay. 24th.
Because I'm not going to be, I'll be getting back a week from now, and that Thursday and Friday are going to be shot.
Right.
By the time I, you know.
Alright.
And if we did the 24th, that would put the hearing out
Probably middle
to
of
the
July.
15th.
Yeah.
July
Yeah.
15th is 4 weeks from the 24th.
Yeah,
So if
so
we,
that works.
I think
Yeah.
we'll be a lot more comfortable by even one more meeting. It just needs
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
sink in.
So the 23rd of
The
what time?
the
24th.
24th,
What time?
At 10? 11?
10,
10?
okay. 10, 11, whatever.
Well, you want Gary to come, don't you?
Yeah, because I think
So
he said the morning,
probably,
right?
you probably should have it at 8:30, so you can go home and go to sleep for a while.
Yeah, that would be fun.
You know,
That would be
I-
fine with me too.
Just run it by him. Huh?
Yeah, and then I
Is that
wouldn't have
okay
to
with you?
cancel the other appointment.
All right,
Yeah.
just check with him as far as
8:30,
Gary, yeah, okay, 8:30?
6:24.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
then,
And that will be mainly to discuss sewer rates.
Yeah,
So we won't have to go into the water, that's the public.
yeah,
and
so
the
that
public
would
hearing will be the
finalize.
30th.
public
At
hearing for the water rates is the 30th at 1.
Wow.
So the meeting on the 23rd or 24th, I'm sorry, the 24th, will that, your evaluation will stay on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should, yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
Because that still has to,
Yeah,
at
that-
some point, yeah,
still has to go.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I know.
What time did you say on the 23rd, that?
I'll email you or Dan can we'll forward that information along through Mark's
Thank
class,
you.
Oh, yeah,
Abraham's
yeah.
class.
And so the 30th is the regular 1 o'clock, or we're waiting here? Or-
30th,
I
1
shouldn't say
o'clock,
regular one,
Yeah,
because it's not.
yeah.
Public hearing.
And I read the memo that had to do with the evaluation, so, but I read it quick. Do we wait for that information from the employees before we do ours? That was the sense I got.
Right, that's how it's,
Okay, so that would be, and if that's gonna happen on the 24th, that's like sometime in the next couple of weeks, okay.
so and it'll be on the agenda, I think last year it went,
It takes,
You know,
it takes,
it's not gonna be done by the 1st.
no,
So don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
no, it's just in my,
Yeah, it's not gonna be done by the 1st.
no, it just takes time
We
to,
never have been done.
no,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a
But
long
we get it
process.
That's all
done.
right.
We
Yeah.
get it done.
You
Get
do
it
them,
done.
Start
that's
again.
something.
The one thing I'd like to bring up about that is, do we have to do this evaluation every year? We're required to do it. We
Yeah.
can't do it 2 years or 3 years.
Like the rates.
Yeah, it's annual, when you're in these, step increases. When, you're in the longevity phase, there's been a little leeway on the evaluations.
You're still in steps,
2 more to go.
2 more to go.
2 more to go.
So I guess we have to put up with this pain.
At least
Or
one
do a
more
two-step
time. That's what I
increase.
asked.
A tier,
Yeah,
how about a
right.
tier
As long
increase?
as the check
You could do
comes.
a two-step.
All right, well, that's fine. All right.
Plant the seed.
All right, so, okay, so that will be, are we gonna,
So staff
John, did they
reviews
tell you all
board
these
comments.
meetings and things were going on when you?
24th, we're gonna finish the sewer.
You're doing a heck of a job.
And then on the 30th will be a public hearing. Now, That's water rates, right?
Right.
And then, so will we have time at that time to do anything on the evaluation?
Sure.
Yeah,
Should have, and we may have, there's some other things pending for one of the meetings at the end of June. For both, we have a couple requests, some
Okay.
future agendas started, like
Sure.
buck slips for the water bills.
Procurement stuff.
Yeah, procurement
let's do-
stuff, so we
yeah,
do have some
let's do
things.
that, all right, that's cool. All right, then what else? So superintendent's evaluation, you guys gotta get busy on that. All right, superintendent's report, have you got anything, Dan?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna share some pictures from
Okay,
our
yeah,
crew doing
water
the
tank, yeah.
24-inch pipe up the tank. So this is, I got a couple pictures here. That one, so the contract work that was bid included them penetrating the side of the tank and bringing down to this 90. So our crew went out and installed, this is all 24-inch pipe. This is going to be the new 24-inch run that shoots back towards the highway if you're looking at it from the highway. So I just wanted to share some pics of work getting done.
Wow, that's a big pipe.
It sure is.
24-inch ductile iron, and then it reduces down to 16 at the end, right here.
And they got valves in there now.
It's heavy stuff.
Which are the red?
This is a traditional gate valve. This is the 16-inch, 16-inch, and then this is a 24-inch butterfly valve.
Now it's going out to the street.
This actually goes out, so the water main, if you're coming from here, Oak Street on this side of the highway, it goes underneath the highway, up past the tank, and then down through the tech school parking lot.
Oh.
So this pipe that's right here goes, let me show you. So our water main comes out underneath here and comes out this way. So right now that pipe's coming out straight here and comes right down this way and connects in here.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So that 24-inch leg that's coming off the side, coming back towards the highway,
Yeah.
we did that so that we could get the tank back online. And we'll be able to then continue running this 24-inch out across the yard to the woods area where we're going to connect in the fall. We'll be able to shut down just this little section of pipe and cut that T-assembly out and reconnect the new 24-inch. So we're going to be working on that with our crew this summer to run that main out.
Wow.
So it's not replacing existing?
No.
Oh.
Well, the 16 is staying because that 16-inch that runs this way will be able to, so right now, let me just do this a little bit more clear.
That 24 is actually feeding in two directions.
Yeah,
Oh. Yeah.
so now we'll actually be able to feed it in 3 directions once we're done.
Yeah.
Because right now there's no water main going from the tank out to the Habitat for Humanity houses.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, the orange line here is a 16-inch water main. And then we have Oak Street, and then there's the Habitat for Humanity houses up here. So with water systems, it's always good to have a looped network instead of a dead end to improve better water quality. So hopefully after we can run our new main out, we can continue this down to connect in this area. So improve, we'll have a 12-inch likely going this way, the 16 fed by the 24. So it should improve hydraulics, flow, and pressure in the area. It's looking forward to see what the impacts are.
What's in the ground now?
Well, right now, there was 16-inch that this is part of the whole reason we're doing this project, right? Good question. So, where this 16-inch here is
Right.
the old pipe, it used to reduce down to 12-inch, and the 12-inch went through the foundation wall right here behind these bricks
Yeah.
and came up and in to the base, up and in 12-inch. Now, 12-inch is a real small pipe
Yeah.
for a 1.5 million gallon storage tank, especially when the one on 39's got a 20-inch, 24-inch, the one on Lothrop has a 20-inch. So you can imagine,
That's a fairly new tank, isn't it?
yeah, 2005. It was causing, the problem with it is that we can pump about 6,000 gallons per minute. And that tank has a higher overflow than the 39 tank. So everything, all the 14 wells operate on well level. So when it drops down to the set point, pumps kick on. If we're running it using the Oak Street tank as our lead tank, it would fill up both tanks. The 39 tank will fill up a little faster. An altitude valve closes, and then all the water then diverts over to the 39 tank. You can't fit 6,000 gallons a minute of water through a 12-inch pipe with any ease. So what it was doing is artificially inflating the pressure, the local pressure in that water main, which is where our pressure transducer that tells us how much water's in the tank was located. So the way that the system was set up, operationally, we couldn't use the Oak Street tank to control our wells, because when it thought that the tank was filled and satisfied, once the pump shut off and that artificially inflated pipe goes down to regular pressure, now we've dropped 2, 3, 4 feet in the tank. So the tank's never been able to be used to its full capacity since it was put online, and we were never able to use it as a controlling tank for the water system. So this is all intended to resolve that.
What to it?
Yeah. It's good stuff. It's fun anyway, I like doing it.
And are they gonna do that final touch up inside there?
They're still waiting
bowl?
for, yeah, so they're waiting. I have some more pictures, I think. I have more pictures. Alright. So, climbed up inside the tank the other day. And there's some staining in there that I'm talking to the guys who just came in to clean it about. But you'll notice in, really difficult to see in the pictures. So up at this seam right here, there's like a 1-inch steel plate, and there's a fair amount of paint that's worn off and now it's corroding and rusting. So before we fill the tank back up, the contractor, we're gonna have do some spot repairs on the inside, because once you fill it up, to drain it again is an entire process. So they're going to come in and touch up spot repairs in there, as well as on the roof by roof of the
I was trying to figure out, because the pictures that you had showed me, I saw the rust stains and
yeah,
stuff.
that's what they,
That was on your phone, though.
yeah, and,
Yeah,
and that's, my phone's, I don't know why they're not showing up. Is this one?
Yeah.
You know what, Alan? I think it's just the projector screen, because it looks
Yeah. It's just-
on my computer, it's
yeah.
much clearer.
Oh, yeah.
You can
It's
see
much
it.
Yeah.
clearer.
Can you see it? You see that? Oh. See,
This
I
dark
can see
staining,
it.
I believe,
Oh,
is
yeah.
coming from the corrosion that's happening up top here on that ring. So they're gonna recoat that before we fill it back up.
I went up there the other day, but I only went up, how many feet? 60 feet?
Oh yeah,
I
anyway,
was winded, so I decided not to take on the next 60.
I had my jet
broke my
pack.
heart.
I climbed it. It was
I
good.
liked it going into the hole.
That's a little bit.
So does
Oh,
the
yeah. 3 spots.
does the water do you have to run any kind of pump in there to keep it clean, or does it get
No,
schmutzy?
I mean, they get, to be quite honest, the inside of tanks they get messy. I mean, ultimately, it's primarily you're turning. So, we pumped almost 1 billion gallons of water last year, right? And although we're filtering iron and manganese out to the tune of 99%, when you're talking 1 billion gallons of water, there's still some, and you'll get some sediment at the bottom of the tank. But that, I believe, is unrelated to the staining that we're seeing here. This is unique. It's interesting because they just had it cleaned. We just had the tank physically cleaned by another subcontractor. They came in before the project started, after they were done doing their work in there, and now this staining appeared, a week or two after they were in to clean it the second time. So I think what we're experiencing is the condensation buildup on the inside of the tank, then bringing the iron from the rust out into the, to the bowl to causing the staining.
What do they paint it with? Epoxy?
Tanemic. It's a tanemic. I can send you the spec.
Oh.
It's
That's it.
Specialized paint.
It's a specialized.
It's tank paint.
It's tank paint.
Water tank paint.
Water tank.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can we choose a different color? Come on.
Yeah.
Non-poisoning.
Yeah.
It's
That's
non-poisoning.
that we know of.
Yeah.
So that I think is all I have to
Okay.
offer.
All right, moving right along. Commissioners, any comment?
I have one question,
Go ahead.
just one. I'm just wondering how we're doing with our water ban and water shortage.
There's one thing I didn't have time to pull together today.
Of course,
There's another
we had to
graph.
get you. No more graphs. I've seen the inside of a water tank, so I mean, my day's complete.
Yeah. Yeah, I intended on having that.
It is kind of cool.
When you sample wells, do you sample from certain areas of the Cape? I know I saw you
The
for
groundwater stuff?
groundwater.
So our groundwater one, we're specifically looking at that Brewster monitoring well.
Okay.
So our permit used to be tied to a monitoring well in Chatham that was much shallower,
Right.
much more likely to run out of water. During the permit renewal process, we had requested to switch to the Brewster monitoring well.
Okay.
So that's.
Right.
But as far as like sampling, we test ground pumping water level, static water level of all of our sources all over town, our 14 wells as well.
Right.
But as far as like restrictions go, they're tied to that monitoring well.
Okay. That's what I want to ask. Yeah.
So I can get you that answer if you bear with me 1 second.
Just kind of wanted a general sense of, I see a lot of people using a lot of water now that I'm looking.
This right here is why everyone's getting hacked, because they don't do this
Do what?
2-factor authentication.
Oh, I do now after being hacked. I have so many levels. It's being
Like
hacked
the
twice in 3
Colonial
years.
Pipeline, the other one that just happened. It says just basic
see.
rudimentary.
Oh, for the. Well, I'm glad you do it. Ooh.
That's encouraging.
That's good.
So that's this week in June. right? So then for comparison. Right, so we're seeing averages 4, 3, 3, 8, 4, 1, 3, 9, that's 2020. And then we're at 2, 2, 3, 5, 2, 6, 2, 6, 2, 8. So we're definitely, that's
A little bit,
response.
yeah.
I mean, 1 million gallons less a day. I mean,
Wow,
it's good.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You know, the one thing about irrigation, I know we need a backflow preventer on all of them. Now, does everybody that puts an irrigation system come in? I don't think so.
No, they don't.
A lot
Supposed
of,
to be.
Yeah.
a lot of them being put
They don't.
in, and we have no control.
Yeah.
But we gotta provide the water.
Right.
Yeah, something needs to happen.
so I just put irrigation in and I didn't know I was required, when I read the regs, I
Yeah,
notified the department because I read in there that I should. I have a gigantic backflow, it's lovely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the key, that's what we want.
Right,
Yeah.
but how would I know?
You wouldn't, I guess.
Right. It should, you know, I
Are
feel like it
contractors
should, the
now?
plumber, like, you're not cutting in an
Plumbers.
irrigation system, you shouldn't be
Need
without
to hook
having a
in.
plumber pull a permit.
Right,
So it should be something that I would think, you know, the inspections department would, you know, we
Yeah.
should be notified, or, you know, something.
In Chatham, they do.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't get anything here.
We do get some,
Some
yeah,
from them?
like from the plumber, and then they'll coordinate it with the plumbing inspector.
Because I know there's a lot more that go in
Really?
than what we,
Yeah.
what we get, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
The weekend, Cowboys in the weekend, that, you know.
but I mean, I would have no idea and,
Right.
you know, I pick an irrigation person, they seem nice and,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
go on my way.
But the thing of it is, a lot of them just hook up, put a valve. you know.
Right,
Oh,
You
no,
put the
no, I got
backflow,
the
you know.
works.
Notice that when you have a plumber involved, you get backflow.
Yeah, no, and I did, but I doubt they notified this
No,
department.
there's a lot out there that just put irrigations and hook them in.
Yeah, oh no, this thing's gigantic, I wish I
Yeah.
had put it on the side of the house. Live and
So-
learn.
I do have to run, but I want to show you something quickly. So you can see some of the headaches that, let's look at last summer. See these bumps?
Yeah,
That's the result of that pipe being too small and that pressure
Really?
transducer. See how these ones go smooth up and
Yeah.
down? That's what it's supposed to look like.
So there's your footage coming down.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Frustrating. And then at that point, when we're, you know, if we're trying to fill that tank, we're getting dangerously high pressures here. 130 PSI in our, you know, which is a lot.
That is.
It's a lot. So, that's what we're looking to resolve. That's all I got.
Okay, all right, so with that, the next meeting, the June 24th, and the next, June 30th, right?
June 24th at 8:30, right?
Yeah.
And the 30th at 1.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, anybody? No? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All right, that is it.
Excellent.
Very good.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you. Great questions.
Thank you. But hopefully we won't have to do rates and regs.
No, I know.
Funny.
Yeah, well, that's, hopefully, that's why we get the intent laid out now, right? And then we don't have to talk about it again.
You need to do your work on your evaluation too.
Yes.
You guys can do that too.
Yeah. Okay, Ellen. Nice
Great.
seeing you too.
Good seeing you
working
guys.
together.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, we never officially met. I've
I
seen you
know.
at many meetings, you know.
Yeah.
The pins are out.
This is great. Good.
So. Have a nice day.
Thank
Have
you.
a-
Great.
Have a nice
Great.
half a day off.
Congratulations.